Hello everyone, welcome to Sri Chaitanya IIT Academy. I am Nanda Gopal, Senior Physics Faculty. So now we will discuss 2020 Advanced Physics Paper 2 solutions. Already many of you might have already seen or gone through the solutions which we have already uploaded. But many of you may be still eagerly waiting for us to give you more details about the solutions. So now let us see them. This is question 1. So this question is based on refraction. Of course, by looking at the question, you might have understood that this question is based on refraction. So in this question, what they are asking you is that there is a large tank which is filled with water and a straight wire is held vertically inside the water. Now suppose this is the cross sectional view. That object is at, this is the object suppose. So he is asking that when there is an observer at this position, he will be observing two images. So we want to find out the distance between the two images. Now if you look at the diagram given in the question itself, the two images were placed symmetrically with respect to the line of sight, which means he may be asking us to find out there are two images due to refraction in the first surface here and due to refraction in the second surface here. So we have to see the two images formed due to the refraction of the two surfaces and the distance between them. So due to refraction we know how to calculate image distance. So let us use that formula and calculate this. Let us see it. So see this. This is refracting surface 1 and this is refracting surface 2. So we know that object distance and image distances are measured from the refracting surface. So for the first surface, the image distance and object distances are measured from P1 and for the second surface they are measured from P2. So for the first surface, let us see what is the object distance. So the object distance is P10. So the object distance is P10. Now in the diagram it is given to us that suppose this distance, this is point A, it is given to us that OA is 12 centimeters. OA is given as already 12 centimeters to us. Then the distance P10 will be 12 into cos 45, which will be 6 root 2 centimeters. Now this is the object distance for this refracting surface. Then the image distance formula is h dash by h is equal to 1 by mu, or h dash is equal to h by mu. So this will be 6 root 2 by 4 by 3, which is 4.5 root 2. This is the image distance that is measured from P1. So now let us calculate OI1. This is nothing but PI1. Now I want OI1. This will be nothing but 6 root 2 minus 4.5 root 2, which is 1.5 root 2. Same way, the distance between O and I2 will also be same because they are placed symmetrically only. So OI2 we will get it as 1.5 root 2. Now if you look at this diagram, we want the distance between I1 and I2. So this distance we want. So this distance is nothing but, I1, I2 in the diagram is nothing but 3 centimeters. So this is first question. Okay, now let us see the second question. A train with cross-sectional area ST is moving with a speed v inside a long tunnel of cross-sectional area 4ST. So assuming that density is rho and the pressure inside and outside the train is P0 in normal conditions. Now he is asking us to calculate the pressure difference between the area where train is existing and the area where train is not existing. So we have to calculate the difference between P0 and the pressure at this point P. So this is a quite simple, we know it is based on fluid mechanics. So we want to get the relation between P0 and P. So first let us apply the equation of continuity and get the relation between their velocities v and vt. This is the trine velocity, which is same as the velocity of the air. So when you apply this, we will calculate the velocity of the air in this region. So for that, what can we write? According to equation of continuity, what is the equation of continuity? A into V is constant. So here the area of cross section in this region is S naught, that is 4st, into the velocity is Vt. And here the area of cross section occupied by the trine is St. The remaining area is 3st. So this will be area is 3st into velocity is suppose V there. Velocity suppose V in that case. Then what is velocity V will be now? 4 by 3 times Vt. This is the velocity of air in this region now. Now applying Bernoulli's equation on the same horizontal plane, we don't have to worry about the height. So pressure plus half rho V square is constant. So P plus half rho V square is equal to Pt or P naught plus half rho Vt square. Now just simplify this, you get it as P minus P naught is equal to half, or it is rather P naught minus P. We get it as half rho into V square minus Vt square, which will come out to be half rho into V square is nothing but 4 by 3 times of Vt. So this will be 16 by 9 minus 1 into Vt square. So which comes out to be 7 by 18 rho Vt square. So this is answer to the second question. Now if the final answer is 7 by 2n, but we got 7 by 18, so n value will be 9. So this is second question. Now let us see third question. By looking at the diagram itself, most of us might have got an idea what is this experiment. This is the famous Millikan oil drop experiment setup, very similar to that. Now just if you go through this, now we can understand what he is asking. Now if you focus on this, now charged oil drops of density 900 kg per meter cube are released through a tiny hole at the center of the top disc. Once some oil drops achieve the terminal velocity, the switch is closed to apply a voltage of 200 volts across the discs. As a result, an oil drop of radius stops moving vertically and floats between the discs. Then the number of electrons present at that position he is asking. Now, when will the oil drop stops? When the net force acting on that is 0. And now because it is at rest, it will not have any viscous force also acting on this. So the only forces acting on these two will be its weight and force due to the electric field that is existing between these two plates. So when it is in equilibrium, we can write the charge on the particles, that is Q into E, is balanced by mg. So the charge on this has to be balanced by mg. Okay. So now what is Q consist of? N into E. Suppose if there were to be n charged particles, then each of charge electron E. So the total charge is Ne, and electric field will be potential difference by distance will give you electric field between these two plates is equal to mg, which is nothing but 4 by 3 pi r cube is the volume into density rho into g. Now substitute these values, we get the value of n, that is the charge of this particle. So we get n is equal to 4 pi r cube rho g d by 3 v e. So when you solve this, we will get the answer for En. So this is third question. Okay, now let us see the question number 4. So a hot air balloon is carrying some passengers and also some few sandbags, each of mass 1 kg, so that the total mass is 480 kgs now, and effective volume of buoyancy is given as V, and the balloon is floating at an equilibrium height of 100 meters. Again see, he is talking about equilibrium. Equilibrium means net force is 0 simply. And what are the forces acting on this in equilibrium? And it is at rest. So only buoyancy and weight of the balloon with its contents. So at height 100 meters, it is in equilibrium and it is carrying 480 kgs. And now when you throw out some bags, it is coming to equilibrium at a height of 150 meters. Why is this happening? Because the pressure varies with density, and the density is varying with height here. So he gave approximately the variation of density is like this, rho equal to rho naught into e power minus h by h naught. Now he is asking us to calculate how many number of bags have been thrown out. So let the initial mass of the content is m1 and final mass may be suppose m2. Then what is being supposed to calculate? We have to calculate m1 minus m2, which is nothing but number of bags into mass of each bag. So what is the mass of each bag? 1 kg. So effectively what we have to calculate is m1 minus m2. So let us see how to do it in a simple way. Now in either case this is in equilibrium. So to be in equilibrium, at that position what will you write? The only forces acting are buoyancy and mg. So we can write m1g is force of buoyancy in the first case. What is the force of buoyancy in the first case? At any position force of buoyancy is V rho 1 into g. It is V rho 1 into g. Similarly m2 will be V rho 2 into g. Now if you simply divide these two, what do we get? m2 by m1 is equal to rho 2 by rho 1. Now how does rho varies? We have this, so it is rho naught into e power minus h1 by h naught by rho naught into e power minus h2 by h naught. So rho naught get cancelled. This will become e power minus of h1 minus h2 by h naught. This is m2 in terms of m1. Now we want m1 minus m2. So n value is effectively nothing but m1 minus m2. So m1 minus m2 will be m1 into 1 minus e power minus of h1 minus h2 by h naught. So now let us substitute these values, we will get the value of n. This is 480 into 1 minus h1 minus h2 of minus. So h1 is 100, h2 is 150, so difference of these two is 50. E power 50 by h naught. So h naught is 6000. So simplify these values, we get the n value to be approximately 4. Okay, now let us see question number 5. So here a point charge is suspended by a string of length L. Now because of bringing a dipole, the position of the string has become inclined rather than vertical. Now he is asking us to calculate what is the work done to bring the dipole from infinity to this position when this bob is in equilibrium, this point mass is in equilibrium. Now we have to calculate here the work done. Simple. Work done is nothing but change in energy of the system. So what is the change in energy here? One is change in gravitational potential energy, another is electrostatic potential energy. So the work done can be written as mgh, which is increase in gravitational potential energy and increasing electrostatic potential energy. That is electric potential V into charge q. So due to a dipole, what is the electric potential? Kq by r square. So this is mgh plus V is k p by r square into q. This is the work done we have to calculate, but we have to convert this in terms of mgh only. So for that, let us see for the equilibrium condition here what happens. So the force is acting on this R in equilibrium mg downwards, which is parallel to this length, and tension here which is parallel to this length, and electrostatic force here which is QE. Now this is in equilibrium. Now if you apply sine rule, the relation between these parameters can be written as this by this length T by L equal to mg is parallel to this length, so mg by L, and here Fe, so Fe by this length, let that distance be suppose r. Let the distance between this point A and this point B be r. Let AB be r. Then this is Fe by r. Now we want to get the relation between these two. So if we get the relation between Fe and mg, we can get Fe is equal to mg into r by L. This is Fe. Now what is Fe? Electrostatic force due to the dipole. So due to a dipole, electric field at that point will be 2 kp by r cube. So this can be written as 2 kp by r cube is equal to mg into r by L. This is mg into r by L. Now what do we have to calculate here? Kp q by r square. Let us convert this term into that. So what do we get? K p q by r square is equal to 2 by r into kp by r square we have to calculate. So we will just do it like this. So we want to kp by r square. Now I want to get it from this here. So we can write 2 kp by r cube is nothing but 2 by r into kp by r square. So kp by r square can be written as r by 2 times of this, so which is r by 2 into 2 kp by r cube, which is mg into r by L. So we get this as mg into r square by 2L. So this is what we have got here, kp by r square. Now when you substitute it here, so the work done will be mgh plus mg into r square by 2L. Now what is r square by 2L here? Now we can get this relation from here. If you look at this distance AB, the distance AB is given as r for us. That's what we have assumed it as r. Now I want to calculate r by L, and r by L is nothing but here from this 2 sin alpha by 2. So 1 r by L is nothing but 2 sin alpha by 2. Now r, what is the relation between h and r now in this diagram? This is also alpha by 2 now for us. Now this h can be written as r into sin alpha by 2. and we have H is equal to R into sine alpha by 2. H value is R into sine alpha by 2. Now dividing this with this, so we get R square by 2L is nothing but H. So we get work done as 2mgh. So this is what we get the expression finally for work done. So work done is 2mgh. We have to calculate the value of n here. So if you look at this, observe these questions, you can very clearly understand that here the concepts are quite simple. Now if you are very confident about your concepts, then these calculations will happen very quickly. Then you will be able to save a lot of time for the other questions which may be a little tougher. Okay, like this. Now we will see the next question. So here this explains us that the question is that there is a gas which is filled and a partition is dividing this container into two equal parts initially. Now it has some weight. Because of the weight of this partitioner, it will fall down, and in equilibrium he is asking us what is the distance of this partition from the top. So in such scenarios we know what happens. This is in equilibrium, so the net force acting on this must be 0. So what are the forces acting on this? Pressure from top, pressure from bottom, and its weight. It has to be balanced. And now whenever there is an expansion or compression or even any exchange of heat energy with the other things, what remains constant for this gas is the number of moles existing in a particular part. That always remains constant. So that is what we will use the condition as. Suppose initial pressure is P naught and initial volume is V naught. If the cross sectional area is A, then we can write initial volume V naught can be the cross sectional area A into the height is 4 meters. This is initial volume. Let the initial pressure be P naught. Then we can write P naught into V naught is equal to N into R into T naught. For us the values of N and T naught is given to us already. Now suppose in equilibrium this will be at this distance, which is at a distance y from the top. Now the volume V1 will be now in this case A into y, and V2 will be A into 8 minus y. Now let the pressures may be P1 and P2. So we can write P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2, which is nothing but P naught V naught, or you can also say it as N R T naught. So from this we can write the values of P1 and P2 directly. Now if you see the equilibrium of this partition, the forces acting on this partition are mg downwards. Pressure from top is exerting a force on this, that is P1 into area, and pressure at the bottom is exerting a force in the upward direction, that is P2 into area. So now here we can write the relation between them as P2 minus P1 into area is equal to mg. Now from these equations, what can you write the relation between P2 and P1 here? P2 is nR T naught by V2 and P1 is nR T naught by V1. So P2 minus P1, so we want to write it as nR T naught into P2 is by 1 by V1, V2 minus 1 by V1 equal to mg by A. Now this can be simplified as nR T naught into 1 by V2, which is nothing but 1 by 8 minus y minus 1 by y is equal to mg. I cancel the A on both sides here. So now we want to find out the value of y. So we can see it here, 1 by 8 minus y minus 1 by y is equal to mg. M is 8.3 into g is 10 by n is 0.1, r is 8.3 and T naught initial temperature is 300. So 8.3 got cancelled, so it becomes 1 by 3. So when you simplify this, we get the value of y to be 6. So if value of y is 6, then it will become, this value will become 1 by 3. So what we have to calculate? The distance of the partition from the top, that is nothing but y. So y value is simply 6 meters. So this is answer to the sixth question. So this is first section. If you observe the overall of this first section, we can see that not even a single question was tough, but only thing is you have to be clear about your concepts and you should be able to do them quickly, and calculation has to be efficient. Then you will be able to score all the questions easily. Now let us see section 2. This is one or more than one type questions. So here there is a beaker filled with a liquid and it is rotated about its axis. Now we know as a result what will happen? The surface will take a curved surface like curved shape like this, and the liquid level at the edges will be little above compared to the middle section. So that difference of heights is given as delta h to us or h to us, and that h value is given to us as very small compared to capital H, the original height, and also it is very small compared to the radius. When required, we can use this data given for us in these solutions when we simplify it. Now if you look at the options first, here the options are, the first thing is to get the relation between radius of curvature, small r, and h. That is first thing. Then second thing is to calculate the apparent depth. So now in the next page we will see how to analyze these options. Let us see in the next page. So here first is to get the relation between capital R, small r and h. Now if we enlarge this top part and look at this, it will be looking like this. So this is the difference in the heights h, and this is r, and this distance is also r now. So this distance will be r minus r. Now if you apply Pythagoras theorem for this triangle, what do we get here? R minus h whole square plus r square is equal to, this distance is capital R. Now when you simplify, what do we get? R square get cancelled both sides. So here it is h square plus r square minus 2hr equal to 0. Now you want to get the value of r here. So the value of r is h square plus r square by 2h. So here first option is correct. Now because it is one or more than one options, we have to just check. Now first one is done, so second one is need not be worried. So now let us see the other options now here. First already we have got first option as correct. Now so second option is ruled out. Now we want to see the other two options, C and D. In that he is asking us to calculate apparent depth. So only one of them will be correct clearly. And here these answers are involving omega square. Okay, so not the capital R values. So we have to convert this into R values in terms of omega. So first let us to simplify that here now. Let us see this first. Now h is very small compared to R. So we can approximate it as R is approximately equal to R square by 2h. This is the first point. Now here we want to relate h also is not there. In the options, in these options h is also not there. So we have to eliminate h in terms of omega square. How to do it? We know that because of this rotation there is a pressure difference created between point B and C, and of course we know the pressure difference between A and C. So pressure at point A is P naught, pressure at point B is also P naught, then pressure at point C, which is PA plus H rho G, must be equal to pressure at point C, which is PB plus the pressure difference between these two. So what is the relation between those two pressure differences if you look at? So the pressure differences between them will be here PC, which is PA plus H rho G, and the same PC is also PB plus half R square omega square into rho. But we know that PA and PB are equal here. So if we equate these two, the relation between H and R we will get from this. So if we equate these two, we get Hg or H is equal to R square omega square by 2G. So this is the relation between H. Now if we simplify this, we can write R as R square by 2H. What is H? R square omega square by 2G. So this is nothing but G by omega square. This is the value of R in terms of omega and G. Now we want to calculate the apparent depth. So this is the refracting surface. Now observer is placed in the air and an object is at the bottom of the container. So this is the refraction of light coming from denser medium to rarer medium. So apparent height formula simply is given by H dash. Of course, if this is a flat surface, we can directly apply H dash by H. But here this is a curved surface. So we'll use the formula for refraction at the curved surface. What is the formula? mu 2 by V minus mu 1 by U equal to mu 2 minus mu 1 by R. So here mu 2 by V minus mu 1 by U equal to mu 2 minus mu 1 by R. So what is mu 2 here? Second medium, that is air. So 1 by V minus 4 by 3 U is minus H, because below the reference line or below the refracting surface we take negative, above we take positive. So minus H is 1 minus 4 by 3 by R. R is positive because it is concave up. So when you simplify it, you get it as 1 by V or minus 1 by V equal to 4 by 3H plus 1 by 3R. Now if you look at the options, in all these options power minus 1 is there. So let us calculate the powers directly like this. 1 by V value we will calculate. Finally we will shift it up. So minus is coming because indicating that it is forming, the image is formed below the reference line. So that's why it is showing it as negative. So that's what we want it as H dash, which is below the reference line only. So the apparent depth is nothing but H dash, which is nothing but minus V here. So we want to find that value as here. So we can write it as 1 by H dash is equal to 4 by 3H. I will take common because all the options are 3H by 4, 3H by 2, so I am taking 4 by 3H common. So what is remaining here? First term is 1. Here 3 has come out, but H is not there. Okay, so to take out H here, I have to multiply this with again H here. So this is H by 4R. Now what is the value of R we have got here? R square by 2H. The value of R is R square by 2H. When you simplify further, we got H value is R square omega square by 2G, or it is coming out to be G by omega square. Put it in this, we get it as 4 by 3H plus 1 plus H by R. So R value is G by omega square. So this is omega square H by 4G. Now H dash will be simply 3H by 4 into 1 plus omega square H by 4G whole power minus 1. This is H dash. So apparent depth formula option D is coming out to be correct. This one is correct. This is question number 7. Now let us see question number 8. Now look at the diagram. It's a very simple question now here. Of all the questions we have seen till now, this is one of the simplest questions here. A student stacks up a ramp that makes an angle 30 degrees with the horizontal. She or he starts at the bottom of the ramp with a speed v0 and wants to turn around over a semicircular path xyz of radius r, during which she reaches a maximum height h. From the ground, if you see, the maximum height is h here, this one, at point y from the ground. Assume that the energy loss is negligible due to any other things, and the force required for this turn at the highest point is provided exclusively by gravitational force only, or weight of the body only. Then what he is asking us to calculate at the highest point, this is the point he is talking us now. So what is the only force acting towards the center? So the only force acting towards the center is the component of mg, which is mg sine theta. So if you write the equation, mg sine theta must be equal to, if you look at this, we can write mg sine theta, okay, directly we can say here, mg sine theta is equal to m v square by r. So we want to find the velocity at that point by applying conservation of energy. What can you write v square as? V square as v naught square minus 2gh. Now substitute in this, m get cancel. So we can write v square is equal to rg sine theta. V square is v naught square minus 2gh is equal to gr into sine theta is 1 by 2. So the first option says v square minus 2gh is 1 by 2 into gr. So first option is correct. Okay, so obviously second option is wrong again. Now option 3 and 4 is talking about the centripetal force required at x and z compared to y. Now if we compare these positions, at position x or position y, at these two positions, at which position speed is more? Obviously at position x speed is more. As speed is more here, so we can obviously say centripetal force required is simply mv square by r. So more the speed, more the centripetal force required for us. Now what is the option asked? The centripetal force required is maximum at x and y or x and z compared to y. Yes, it's correct because the speed is more at this point. So option 4 is correct. Question number 9. So looking at the diagram, we can get clearly that it is from rotational mechanics. So one of the simple concepts in this is a rod is pivoted and you bullet coming with a speed is hitting this rod and gets embedded it. So the combined system now rotates with an angular speed omega about the pivot. So he is asking the maximum angular speed is achieved for what value of x, and then what is that maximum value of, what is the value of x for which it is maximum, and what is that maximum value of omega, and different things we have to calculate. So we know that this is rotation about fixed axis. So simply we can apply law of conservation of angular momentum about the axis of rotation about which is fixed at point O, suppose. So what is initial angular momentum of the bullet? It is m into v into r, which is x, is equal to the final angular momentum. Now it is a single system which is rotating about a fixed axis, so which is I omega. What is I? For the rod it is m L square by 3 for the rod, and for the particle or the bullet it is m x square into omega. Now when you simplify this, what is omega here directly? M get cancelled, so we get omega as v x by L square by 3 plus x square. So this is nothing but 3vx by L square plus 3x square. So option A is correct. Now you want this omega to be maximum. If any function is maximum, then what we write? Its first derivative is 0. So we write d omega by dx is 0. This is one way to write it. Another simple way, logically, if you think, this function has to become maximum. Now I can say its inverse has to become automatically minimum. Even for that condition we can say its first derivative is 0. So I will write like that one. So if I write that, I will get d by dx of L square by 3x plus x square, plus x square by x should be 0. This is simple derivative, that's why I am taking this method. So when you simplify it, you get it as minus L square by 3x square is equal to plus 1 equal to 0, or we get it as x square by L square is equal to 1 by 3. So what do we get? X value at that position will be L by root 3. So we got this value also, and this is ruled out, this is wrong, this we got. Now take this value of x and substitute in this omega now. Now if you substitute in this omega, taking the value of L by root 3, we get it as V into L by root 3 by L square by 3 plus x square, which is also L square by 3. So 2 L square by 3. So which will become root 3 times V by 2L. So even this option is also coming out to be correct. Okay. So this is also quite simple question. We have seen till now. Last question is also quite simple. Even this question is also very simple. Okay. Now we can go to the next question. That is question number 10. Now this is mostly conceptual, very simple. He is talking about X-ray tube. So if you remember the principle of X-ray tube here, the principle of X-ray tube is the electrons are accelerated by the electron gun. The electron gun produces the electrons which are accelerated by the accelerating voltage, which determines, accelerating voltage determines the cutoff wavelength, and the cathode current or the electron gun current determines the number of electrons emitted per unit time, which is determining effectively the intensity, because number of electrons emitting or striking will produce the number of photons, which will decide the intensity. So you can very clearly understand intensity depends on the number of electrons emitted, or which is directly proportional to the current. Okay, and the cutoff wavelength simply depends on, this is the minimum, the cutoff wavelength. If you observe the graph of intensity versus the wavelength, we know that graph will be like this. So this is how the graph looks like. So here this is called cutoff wavelength. So this is cutoff wavelength. So what is the expression for cutoff wavelength? Cutoff wavelength is the minimum wavelength which is corresponding to the maximum energy. So what can be the maximum energy of the electrons accelerated through a potential difference V? So the kinetic energy they will gain is EV. This is the kinetic energy or energy of the electrons. Now which can be the maximum energy of the X-rays also. So this can also be the energy of X-rays. So energy of X-rays is Hc by lambda c. So lambda c is nothing but Hc by EV. So it is inversely proportional to the voltage, applied voltage. Now here what they have done, the filament current is decreased to I by 2 and potential difference is also increased to 2V. Now if you increase the potential difference 2 times, then cutoff wavelength has to become half. Now let us see the first options like this. Cutoff wavelength will reduce to half. So that part of this is correct. And now wavelength of the characteristic X-rays will remain same. Now on what factors the wavelength of characteristics remains or depends on? It depends on the transition energy of the target atom. So that is not changed, nothing we are disturbing about the target atom here. So characteristic X-rays wavelength remains as it is. So the cutoff wavelength has become half and characteristics X-rays wavelength will remain same. So first option is correct. Now second one says cutoff wavelength as well as wavelengths will remain same. So this is wrong. Third option, cutoff wavelength reduced to half and now he is talking about the intensities. So cutoff wavelength has become half. Now intensity is directly proportional to the filament current. Intensity is directly proportional to filament current. Filament current has become half. So the intensity also will become half and it says that intensity of all X-rays will decrease. So this option is also correct. And here last option says cutoff wavelength will become 2 times larger. But that's not correct. So option A and option C are correct here. Okay. This is question number 10. This is also quite simple. All the multi-answer questions we have seen appears to be very simple till now. Okay. We will see the next one. Question number 11. Two identical non-conducting solid spheres of same mass and charge are suspended in air from a common point like this. So the angle between the strings is given as suppose alpha. Now they are immersed in a liquid of dielectric constant 22 and the density is 800. Now the angle between them remains the same. The angle between them remains same. So he is asking what are the things that are going to happen. Now if you look at the first two options, it is talking about the electric force between the spheres. Now one of the most important property or one of the fundamental properties of electrostatic force between two charged particles, the definition of Coulomb's law says that the force between two charged particles remains same and it doesn't depend on the surroundings or the presence of any other charge in the surroundings. Net force on one of them may be changed, but the force between two charged particles remains the same. But the net electrostatic force acting on this will be different because of the dielectric, that is different, but the force between these two will remain the same. So option A is correct. Now second thing is last option, if you look at it, is talking about tension in the string holding the spheres remains unchanged. If you look at this, what is the relation between tension mg and electrostatic force? Net for electrostatic force on this sphere is suppose Fe. This is mg. Then tension T will be the resultant of these two, which is root of mg square plus Fe square. Now when you immerse this in a medium of some dielectric constant, whatever that value will be, then Fe will be now Fe dash, that will be Fe by dielectric constant K, and similarly now in that case buoyancy will start acting now. So resultant of mg and buoyancy, which we call it as apparent weight, mg dash is mg into 1 minus density of liquid by density of solid. Okay. Now the T value, new T value will be mg dash will come and Fe dash will come. So Fe dash is changing, mg dash is changing, so T will change. So option D won't be correct. So when you look at the option C, mass density of the sphere, so this is what we want to calculate. Now the angle remains same, that means the ratio of these two forces also remains same. So you can write mg dash by mg is same as Fe dash by Fe. The ratio has to be same so that the angle remains the same. So what is mg dash by mg? 1 minus density of liquid by density of solid, and this is 1 by K simply, dielectric constant. So now what we want to calculate is density of the sphere. So rho L by rho S is 1 minus 1 by K, which is given as K value is 21. So this is 20 by 21. Then density of solid will be 21 by 20 into density of liquid, which is given to us as 800. Now this will become 840. So density of solid object is 840 kg per meter cube. So this option is also correct. Okay. So this is question number 11. Quite simple. As we have seen, all the multi-answer questions till now are very simple. Let us see the next one. So question number 12, he gave us that starting at t equal to 0 from the origin, at t equal to 0 the particle is at origin and it is starting with a speed of 1 meter per second. A particle follows a two-dimensional trajectory in xy plane so that the relation between x and y is given by y equal to x square by 2. Now let ax and ay denote the components of acceleration along x-axis and y-axis. So now he wants us to answer these terms. Now let us see first of all what is the relation between ax and vx and ay and vy. So now we have y equal to x square by 2. If I differentiate, we get vy equal to x into vx. X into 2x, 2 get cancelled, into dx by dt, which is vx. Now if we differentiate again, then what do we get? Ay equal to, this is uv function we will apply here. Differentiation of this will be, if I keep x as it is, this will be ax. If I keep vx as it is, differentiation of x will give you again vx. So this is vx square. So this is ax and ay values. Similarly, the relation between ax and ay is given by this relation now. Now look at each option now. Now first option says ax equal to 1 meter per second square implies that ax is equal to 1 meter per second square. Suppose it implies that when the particle is at origin, what is the value of ay? Now when the particle is at origin, what is the value of x? 0. At x is equal to 0, this is what we are talking, and t equal to 0. What can you write? Vy is 0, which implies Vx is nothing but V itself, and that V is given to us as 1 meter per second. So this is at origin or at t equal to 0, this is what we can say. Now what do you write about Ay then? Ay is x is 0 and Vx is 1, so Ay equal to 1. So Ax equal to 1 meter per second square means, if it implies that at origin Ay will be 1 meter per second square. So option A is correct. Now second option, Ax equal to 0 implies Ay equal to 1 at all times. Okay. Now the contradictory comes between these two. What do you observe in this now? Suppose if Ax equal to 0, then this is 0. If Ax is equal to 0, what do you write? Ax is 0 means Vx is constant, and what is that Vx? 1. So Vx remains as 1 only. Now if you see at this, Ay, Ax is 0, Ay equal to Vx square. So we get Ay equal to Vx square, which remains as 1. So this is also correct. Now third option, at t equal to 0, that means already we have discussed at t equal to 0 what happened? Vy is 0 and Vx is V. So at t equal to 0 the particle's velocity points in the x direction. So this is correct. Now last one, Ax equal to 0 implies that at t equal to 1 second the angle between the particle's velocity and the x-axis is given by what? Now he is saying Ax is 0, I am talking about option D now. Now option D, if Ax is 0, Vx remains same, that is 1. Vx remains always constant, that is 1, it remains. Now we have to calculate Vy. So what is Vy? X into Vx, and what is x? Vx into t. Vx is 1, t is also 1, so this whole thing is 1. So Vx is 1, Vy is 1. So what is the angle it makes with x-axis then? Obviously 45 degrees with x-axis, because Vx equal to Vy. So option D is also correct. So here all the 4 options are correct. Okay. So this is question number 12. All right. Now we will see next question. Okay. We will continue with the next question, that is question number 13. So here a spherical bubble inside water has radius r. Now assuming the pressure to be inside and outside same as P naught, that means ignore the effects of surface tension. Now it is compressed in adiabatic process till the radius has become r minus a. So here a is given very small compared to r. So we can say changes to be very small. That's what the approximations we can take. So this delta r can be written as minus a. Then which is volume delta V by V can be written as 3 times delta R by R, which is simply minus 3A by R. This is what we can write about delta V. Okay. Now this is adiabatic process. He is asking us to calculate work done in the process. Work done in the process by whom? External agent. So work done by external agent is nothing but negative of work done by the gas. So the work done by the external agent will be P2V2 minus P1V1 by gamma minus 1. So this is what we have to calculate. Now delta V by V we got. So I write this like this. P2 can be written as suppose P naught plus delta P, and V2 is suppose V naught plus delta V minus P naught V naught by gamma minus 1. I hope you understand what I am doing. Because the changes are very small, so I am writing P2 as suppose pressure is increased by small value of delta P. So the final pressure is P naught plus delta P. Similarly volume I am writing V naught plus delta V, and initial values of P naught and V naught by gamma minus 1. Now we have already delta V value here. Okay. And we have to calculate delta P value in this. So how to get the delta P value now? Okay, let us first simplify this. So when you simplify this, we get it as P naught V naught common by gamma minus 1 if we take common. What is remaining here? First term P naught V naught get cancelled. Okay, that is getting cancelled. So P naught V naught, if we take P naught V naught is getting cancelled here. P naught V naught getting cancelled. So P naught into delta V plus delta P into V naught. So when you take in P naught V naught common, what is remaining is delta P by P plus here delta V by V. So this is what is the work done now. Now we will calculate delta P by P in terms of delta V by V. Okay. So what is delta P by P? P V power gamma is constant. So delta P by P plus gamma into delta V by V is 0. So delta P by P is minus of gamma delta V by V. So if we put it in this, we get the work done as P naught V naught by gamma minus 1 into delta V by V into 1 minus gamma. So now V naught and V naught get cancelled. So what we get is P naught by gamma minus 1 into delta V into 1 minus gamma. Okay, now substitute this. So we get this as minus of P naught into delta V. So what is delta V? Minus 3A by R into V. So which is 4 by 3 pi R cube. So when you simplify this, 3 and 3 got cancelled. We are getting it as 4 pi P naught R square into A. So here in the options they gave it as 4 pi P naught R A square. I think by mistake it has been misprinted. If it is the mistake that you also have been facing in the paper itself, then you will get add marks for this question. Otherwise, if it is the typing mistake in the paper that I have set up, then answer for the value of x will be 1. If that is a typing mistake, answer could have been 1. Otherwise, you will get add marks for this question, or this will be deleted. So this is 13th question. Now let us see the next one. So 14th question. In the balanced condition, the values of resistance of the four arms of Wheatstone bridge are shown in the figure. It is a balanced condition now. So the resistance R3 has a temperature coefficient of 0.0004. If the temperature of R3 is increased by 100 degrees centigrade, then what is the voltage developed between S and T? That is the reading of voltmeter he is asking. Initially, this is a balanced bridge. So the potential at S and potential at T will be same. Now we have to calculate when you change this resistance because of temperature, there is a potential difference. So he is asking us to calculate that potential difference here. So let us take such a simple value. Let value of V may be 0 here, and then the value of V will be 50 here. Now this side there are no changes, so we can directly calculate potential at T now. So what is the potential at T will be? I into R So potential at T will be I into this resistance. So what is I will be? V by this whole thing. So this will be 50 into 500 by 600. So which is 5 by 6 into 50. This is 5 by 6 into 50. That is potential at point T. Now we want to calculate potential at point S. Now this is not balanced one. So by the same formula we can write potential at S now. For that we have to calculate the value of R3 first. So the value of R3 can be given by R3 equal to, it is temperature variation R3 naught into 1 plus alpha delta T. So what is this value will be now you are getting? This is 300 plus 300 into alpha, which is 4 into 10 power minus 4 into delta T, which is 10 power 2. So which is coming out to be 312. So this is R3 now. Now by the same formula if we apply here, we get Vs is equal to 50 into, then this resistance is now 312 by 312 plus 60. 312 plus 60, 372. So this is Vt and this is Vs. So we want the potential difference delta V, which will be 50 into 312 by 372 minus 5 by 6. So when you simplify, it comes out to be approximately 0.27 volts. Okay, simple one, but some effort for the calculations. Alright, this is question number 14. Now 15. So two capacitors with capacitance values C1 and C2 are connected in series. The voltage applied across this combination is also V, having with some error. Then the percentage error in the calculation of energy stored in this combination. So the energy stored in the capacitor is given by U equal to half C V square. Now we want to calculate the percentage error. Simply we can write delta U by U equal to delta C by C plus 2 times delta V by V. Delta V is given to us, V is given to us, and now delta C and C values we have to calculate. Now let the effective capacitance of these combinations will be C. So we can write C equal to C1 plus C2. Now error calculations we will do later. First let us simplify this. This is parallel combination. So we write C value as 1 by C equal to 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. In series combination the effective capacitance is given by 1 by C equal to 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. So we want to get the effective value of this first. So this value of C comes out to be 213, 236 by 5, 1.2. So it is 1.2 thousand picofarad. So this is what C value is. Now you want delta C. So if we differentiate this, we get delta C by C square equal to minus delta C1 by C1 square minus delta C2 by C2 square. Now I want to find the value of delta C by C. So delta C by C value is delta C1 by C1 square into C plus delta C by C2 square into C. This is what we want to calculate. So now let us calculate this and see. Now if you want to take in percentage directly, you can multiply with 100 also. Okay. So now simplify this and check quickly. Delta C1 value is 10 by C1 square 2 into 10 power 3 whole square plus delta C2 value is 15 by 3 into 10 power 3 whole square into C. What is the value of C here? 1.2 into 10 power 3. Now percentage I want to put, I am putting 100 value also in this. Okay. Now let us simplify this quickly. So what do we get here? 110 power 3 can be removed with this. So this is 10 by that 100 also I will take it inside, it will become 20, and here it is 15 by 30. What I am doing is 110 power 3 I removed from these two. So okay, this is 2 square. So into 2 here, into 3 here, into 1.2. So this is percentage values of delta C by C directly. So when you simplify this, this is 1 by 4 and this is 1 by 6 into 1.2. So this value is 12, 5 by 12, so this is 0.5. So substitute it here, we will get the value of delta U by U. So delta U by U value will be delta C by C in percentage is 0.5 plus 2 times delta V by V. So 2 times delta V by V. So delta V is 0.02 by 5 into 100. Okay. So that is 4 by 5, 0.8 and this is 0.5, 1.3%. So this is what the value of delta U by U is. Okay. So this is question number 15. Okay. Now let us see question number 16. So a cubical solid aluminum block which has bulk modulus of 70 gigapascal has an edge of length 1 meter on the surface of the earth. Now it is kept on the floor of 5 meter deep, 5 kilometer deep ocean, taking the average density of water as 10 power 3 and G as 10, find the change in the edge length of the block. So he is asking delta L simply, very simple thing. So what you want to find out is delta L. So what is the relation between delta V and delta L? Simple, delta V by V equal to 1/3 of delta L by L. Now from the bulk modulus definition, what can you write? Bulk modulus will be delta P by minus delta V by V. So from this delta V by V can be is nothing but minus delta P by B. This is delta V by V. which is 1/3 of delta L by L. Now substitute the value simply, we get delta L is equal to minus 3L into delta P by B. Substitute all the values quickly. So we get it as minus 3 into L, original length of the cube, 1 meter. Delta P is H rho G. H is 5 into 10 power 3, rho is 10 power 3, G is 10 by bulk modulus 70 gigapascal, which is 10 power 9. So when you simplify, this is 10 power 6 gone, this is 10 gone, so 10 power 3, which you are getting it as minus 15 by 7 millimeters. Minus 15 by 7 millimeters. So which will be minus 2.14 millimeters. This is change in length. Very simple calculation here and very simple problem. Alright, we'll go to the next one. Question number 17. So this is based on the mutual inductance concept. So the basic meaning of mutual inductance is current through the first loop will change the flux in the second loop. Similarly, the change in the current in the second loop can change the flux in the first loop. So what is the flux linked with the first loop we can write now? Can be like this, is L1 I1 minus R plus M into I2. This will be the flux linked with the first loop. Similarly, the flux linked with the second inductor can be written as L2 I2 minus R plus M into I1. Now, whether it is plus or minus depends on whether the current in this is enhancing the flux in the first one or the current in this is enhancing the flux in the second one. Now from the diagram it is not at all clear whether they are enhancing each other or opposing each other. So let us take one condition and then see both possibilities can exist here. I think they will be giving you answer for both as correct here most probably, because from the diagrams it is not very clear that whether it is enhancing or opposing. So I am taking their opposing, so I will take the minus condition and simplify. Finally we can check also for the positive conditions what can be that one value now. So okay, now what is the potential difference across this inductor now will be the relation between potential difference we want to calculate. So potential difference is nothing but V is equal to L into di by dt in general. So now here will be potential difference across the first one will be L1 into di1 by dt minus M into di2 by dt. Similarly, V2 can be written as L2 into di2 by dt minus M into di1 by dt. This is the relation between V1 and V2. So what is the power delivered to these inductors or power delivered by the battery? We can write this as power is V into I. Then the work done is nothing but P dt, which is V1 I1 plus V2 I2 into dt. Now when you substitute this one, it is coming out to be L1 I1 di1 plus L2 I2 di2 minus M I1 di2 minus M I2 di1. Now this is dW, then total work done will be integral, which is half L1 I1 square half L2 I2 square minus It is I1 d2 and I2 di1. So this will be d of I1 I2. So m I1 I2. So now when you substitute all these values, what is I1 here? The steady state current in the first branch. So the value of I1 will be V1 by R1, that is 1 ampere. Similarly, I2 value will be V2 by R2, that is 2 amperes. Now substitute in this, we get the value as 35 joules, millijoules, sorry. Suppose if we were to consider that these two are adding up the flux, this is adding up the flux, then this could have become plus, then this could have come out to be 55 millijoules. So, because it is not very clear, then either of these two must be giving you the proper answers. Okay? Now let us see the last question now. A container with 1 kg of water is kept in sunlight, which causes the water to get warmer than the surroundings. And the average energy per unit time per unit area received by the sunlight due to sunlight is 700 watt per meter square, and it is absorbed over an effective area of 0.05 meter per second square. So, what is the rate at which heat is absorbed by the water is nothing but 700 into 5 into 10 power minus 2, which is 35. So, this is the rate at which it is absorbed. When steady state is achieved, it is going to lose the heat at the same rate to the surroundings. So, rate at which it is absorbing is same as rate at which it is losing to the surroundings. So, what is the heat loss to the surroundings? Nothing but will be same as absorbed, which is nothing but ms into minus dt by dt. Or this is difference of temperatures to the surroundings, we can compare with that. Now he said that assume Newton's law of cooling to be valid. What is Newton's law of cooling valid? Newton's law of cooling says to us that the rate of decrease in temperature is directly proportional to difference in temperatures. So what it says is rate of cooling, which is minus dt by dt, is directly proportional to the temperature difference. So that constant K is also given to us. Now we can substitute everything here. Now we can get delta T here. Now from this we can write this as multiply both sides with ms. So ms into minus dt by dt is equal to K into delta T into ms. So this ms into minus dt by dt is nothing but heat absorbed or heat loss, that is 35. So this is 35 equal to K value is 10 power minus 3 into delta T into ms value is 4.2 into 10 power 3. So delta T value will be 35 by 4.2, which is 8.33. So this is the temperature difference to the surroundings to the water. Okay. So I hope you understood all the questions in this. And if you observe this, the physics is not difficult, especially paper 2 physics is not difficult. It is only the clarity of subject that is required, and I hope you understand this, and I hope you had a good time. Alright, so this is the conclusion of paper 2 physics. Thank you.